Welcome back, intermediate second-year political science students. If you're gearing up for those board exams, you are in the exact right place. Today, we're tackling one of the absolute most important topics in your entire syllabus, the Prime Minister of India. Now, we hear about the PM on the news literally every single day, right? But to score top marks, we got to look past the headlines and dive into the actual constitutional mechanics of the office. We're going to decode exactly why the Prime Minister is officially known as the real executive of the country. Let's get into this explainer.
To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at a massive, real-life example that we all remember vividly, the COVID-19 pandemic. When the country was facing this totally unprecedented crisis, it wasn't some committee or a ceremonial figurehead calling the shots. Nope, it was the Prime Minister who stepped up to lead the nation. We're talking announcing national lockdowns, rolling out massive economic relief packages, and coordinating literally the world's largest vaccine drive. Of course, they didn't do it alone, but the PM had to coordinate with every single ministry and state government. That is what real executive power looks like in action. It's not just some theory sitting on a page. It's the sheer power to mobilize an entire nation when it matters most.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll define the real exec, map out the PM's position, break down their 8 core powers, compare them directly to the president, and then wrap it all up with some targeted exam prep.
All right, Section 1, the real executive. Let's define what true power actually means here. Now, what's super fascinating about this is how Article 74 of the Constitution officially cements the Prime Minister as the real executive. At the same time, it keeps the president as the constitutional head. Here's the deal. Article 74 states that the president shall act on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. And guess who heads up that council? You guessed it, the Prime Minister. So while the president is the head of the state on paper, the prime minister is the actual head of the government in practice. Basically, almost all those executive powers that are formally handed to the president, yeah, they are actually exercised by the PM. Moving right along to Section 2, let's look at the PM's position in the Indian polity and see how this authority flows. Looking at this top-down flow of power, it's pretty clear. You've got the Constitution reigning supreme right at the very top. Just below that sits the president, our constitutional head. But right below the president, that's where the prime minister sits as the real executive head. Notice how the PM acts as this absolute crucial link, literally the linchpin, connecting the president above to the council of ministers and the broader administration below. Everything flows through the prime minister. Think of the government like a giant wheel. Well, the prime minister is the hub keeping it all spinning. And to maintain that central spot, the PM needs some serious authority. That brings us to Section 3, the 8 core powers and functions. Okay, listen up, because I have an absolutely fantastic study hack for you here. If you really want to ace this on your exam, just memorize this acronym. HLCLPAFE. Seriously, go ahead and scribble this down in the margins of your notes right now. HLCLPAFE. If you can remember this exact sequence of letters, you are going to easily recall all 8 core functions of the Prime Minister. Let's break down exactly what each of these letters actually stands for. Let's kick things off with H and L. H stands for Head of the Council of Ministers. This means the Prime Minister selects ministers and recommends their appointment to the President. They hand out the portfolios, deciding who gets to run the finance ministry, who takes over defense, and they can even reshuffle them or politely ask a minister to resign. Then we have L, which is leader of the cabinet. The PM presides over those big cabinet meetings, guides government policies, and coordinates all the different ministries to make sure everyone is pulling in the exact same direction. Next step in our mnemonic, we've got C and the second L. C is for Chief Advisor to the President. Remember Article 74 we just talked about? The PM is the one advising the President on incredibly important constitutional and administrative matters. Basically, most presidential powers are only put into play based on this advice. Then, our second L stands for Leader of the Lok Sabha. Assuming the PM is a member of the Lok Sabha, they lead the House, shepherd government legislation through Parliament, and step up to the mic to answer the really tough debates and criticisms from the opposition.
All right, moving right along to P and A. P is for policy formulation. Whether we're talking about the economy, social issues, foreign affairs, or defense, the buck stops right here. The PM ensures that government programs aren't just fancy ideas on paper, but get rolled out effectively on the ground. Then we have A for administrative functions. The PM keeps a watchful eye on all the ministries, ensures everything is coordinated smoothly, and crucially, acts as the ultimate referee whenever there's a dispute between different government departments.
Finally, we round out our super handy mnemonic with F and E.
F is for foreign affairs. The Prime Minister is quite literally the global face of India, representing the country at huge international summits and heavily shaping our foreign policy. And E brings us full circle back to our earlier example, emergency role. During times of national crisis, the PM steps up to advise the president and actively coordinates the government's entire action plan, exactly like we saw with the COVID-19 pandemic. So burn this into your memory. HLCLPAFE.
All right, Section 4, PM versus the President. This is the ultimate comparison, and you'll definitely want to know the difference for the exam.
Putting them side by side like this perfectly illustrates that real versus nominal dynamic. Looking at the basis of power, the PM is the real executive head, while the president is the constitutional head. For appointments, the PM gets elected by the Lok Sabha as the majority party leader, whereas the president is chosen by an electoral college. But pay attention here, because this is the absolutely crucial distinction for you political science students: tenure and accountability. The president has a fixed 5-year term and isn't directly accountable to the Lok Sabha. The prime minister, on the other hand, only gets to hold office for as long as they have majority support in the Lok Sabha. So while the PM's power is incredibly vast, it relies 100% on the active, ongoing support of the legislature. They are directly, day-to-day accountable.
Almost done. Let's hit Section 5, Exam Prep and Review, where we master the essentials.
So, to really crush your upcoming exams, you need to be ready to tackle these specific topics. First, be able to confidently explain why the PM is the real executive head. Practice writing out an essay outlining those 8 powers and functions. And hey, use our HLCLPAFE mnemonic to quickly structure your paragraphs. It works like magic. Also, be prepared to map out the PM's exact position in the Indian polity, showing them sitting squarely between the president and the Council of Ministers. And finally, you might want to practice writing a short note specifically on the PM's emergency role. You could totally use the pandemic response as a great modern example.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to keep this central quote in mind when you're writing any essay on the Prime Minister. A good Prime Minister leads the nation with vision, decisions, and responsibility. It's not just about sitting in the big chair, it's about executing those 8 complex functions with real foresight and heavy accountability.
We've covered the constitutional mechanics, the hierarchy, and the 8 distinct powers. Now I want to leave you with a quick question to think about. Knowing this immense authority, how does the real executive power of the Prime Minister actually shape your daily life? Look around you at the infrastructure, the national policies, the economy. It all traces back to this one office. Best of luck to all you intermediate second-year students. You are going to do great on this critical topic. Study hard, lean on your mnemonics, and thanks for watching this explainer, proudly brought to you by MEGHA Education.